All right. We're live. It's Modern Relics. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. We're back again.
Consistency.
Consistency. I heard that's the key to happiness. I don't know. The key to podcasting, I'll tell you that much. How are you?
It truly is. I'm doing fabulous, my friend.
Nice.
I am doing fabulous.
Good to hear.
I had a really good week. Just at work. It was busy, but like not overly stressful.
Yeah.
We got new lights in the shop, which was great.
What kind did you get?
The utility company, I guess, has been taxing us without us knowing for a while. And they went, oh, hey, with all this money that we've taken, we can replace all your lights in all of the businesses that agree to it for free. And since all my light fixtures are in the realm of 35 plus years old.
Sure.
I was like, how much will it cost? And they're like, $200 for all of your lights in the entire business. And I went, do it. So now it's bright as the sun in my shop now. And
nice.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I had a bunch of notifications that was like, hey, the utility company has been overcharging all of you by hundreds, if not thousands of percentage points over what they should be for a very long time. And we're all collectively looking around going, yeah,
we can tell.
We totally can tell. Imagine like your utility bill's like $80 all year. And then in June, July, and August, it jumps to $700. And you're like, something seems imbalanced. So they're working through the details. Maybe I'll get some free light fixtures too. I don't know. Or at least cheap ones. Nothing's free. You're like, we'll blow on you in August. Right. We'll send a guy to be like,
his name's Todd. He'll come over and he'll
he's just going to hang out. Like, I'm feeling hot, Todd, and he's just going to chase you around with like a little paper fan.
He's just like, eating frozen grapes all day long.
Yeah, but don't worry. You've paid for Todd's annual salary already, so this is on us. Like, thanks.
Awesome.
I hope Todd likes the Southwest.
Yeah, the energy company's doing the least efficient thing. It falls right in line.
It's really is par for the course. I love it.
Yeah. One of the things though this week, after church on Sunday, Aaron and I got invited over to my daughter Kate has been seeing a young man.
Yeah.
And we actually very much like this young man. So his name, I'm not going to say his name, but
sure. We'll give you the last 16 digits of his credit card number and everything, you guys. Turn up the
volume. He's got a really cool name. That's the only reason why I wanted to say it. But
Mr. X. So you met Mr. X's parents?
Yeah, we went over to his mother is a traveling nurse, and she has been in Alaska for the last couple of years, and would come back and visit. She came back for a visit. She's going to be back permanently, I think, somewhere around August. But his dad had come back a couple weeks prior to start doing bathroom remodels and stuff in their home. And, Kate had met him quite a bit. And then when the mom came back last week, she got to meet her and got to hang out with her and spend some time with her. And then they extended an invitation over to Aaron and I to come over after church for like a backyard kind of hangout barbecue thing. And so of course, naturally there's nerves involved in meeting the other family, right? Are they going to like each other? The kids are
Could they be in-laws one day? Like, there's a lot going on here.
Kind of thing. But a lot of measuring, making sure that things mesh. But
they had their Harris Waltz t-shirts on when you guys got there just to troll you, or
no?
Okay.
No.
It would have been the best.
Oh man, I don't know. Like, I probably wouldn't have taken my sunglasses off and probably made some comments that got hits from my daughter. Dad. But I think the anticipation for Kate and Mr. X They are. I honestly, they took it a lot better than I anticipated. I think they were a little nervous, but they kind of talked it out. And were like, "Hey, whatever happens, happens. Let the cards fall where they may. Who cares?"
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they behaved when we got there. They weren't like like at all. They were doing their own thing, playing with some of the younger cousins and having a water and food fight. But it was really comfortable. We had a really good time. They're wonderful people, really down to earth, and got a good sense of humor about them. And it was comfortable, but it wasn't just them. It was like 20 other, like both of his brothers were there, their
Mm.
significant others, a bunch of their friends, and then a bunch of like aunts and uncles and the grandma and family friends and stuff like that were all there, like just the people who all hang out together. And so we were kind of being introduced to the whole lot of them, and it was actually very pleasant. We were super relaxed. We had a great time.
Nice.
And apparently they liked us too. So it was overall very successful, which I'm sure put the two of them at ease. And the mom goes back, I think, this week, and then she'll be in Alaska for like 2 months, and then come back. And then we're probably going to try to do it again and
Cool.
hang out with them. So they seemed pretty cool. I would say 85% like aligned.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff that probably uh, isn't really pertinent to the relationship,
Sure.
at all, that we probably don't see eye to eye on, but it's neither here nor there and
Yeah.
does not matter. So
8.5 megs to the end for the parents. Love to see
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, if I was to give it a rating. But yeah, it's good. Like it seems like if this, which it seems it will, but if this venture that they're taking has legs of any kind and is moving forward into more serious territories, that these are people that I would not mind seeing on holidays and a couple of times throughout the year. Like these are people that, and I had an opportunity to kind of, which I don't think a lot of parents do, and I think it needs to be done more often. We love, and believe me, I am 100% not an exception to this. We love to bitch, moan, and complain about the bad kid.
Yeah.
Just pointing out all the flaws of today's youth, and really railing on, if Seattle was a kid,
Sure.
like we love to rag on him, and um, but I don't think and I've taken to this. This isn't the first time I've done this at all recently, but I thought it was very important in this particular case where I think it's important for people to hear when their children excel in
Morality.
being a good in morality and being a good human being,
Yeah.
and it needs to be verbalized, it needs to be worded, it needs to be put out there, it needs to be, they need to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
They need to hear that confirmation that other people recognize that you didn't dish the world out a horrible human being, that you've actually done a good job at raising somebody who other people have noticed are good human beings. So I did have an opportunity to do that, and it was well received. So, talking about how in my line of work, I deal with a lot of miscreant Gen Zers
Oh,
and
yeah.
the like,
Yeah.
and
You see all
so
kinds. Yeah.
I do. And so, but that particular age range, there's, I don't mean to be the old man telling kids to get off my lawn, but it's kind of that way. Um, there's just an element of like, and you can ask anybody in the shop, there's an age range that I just have zero bandwidth for, zero tolerance
Yeah.
for.
Me too.
And it is just the most self-focused generation I think I've ever seen, where they don't care. They've never, their parents never trained them even a modicum of manners or etiquette of any kind. And it's almost as if it's the opposite of it, that they've been taught that you just do what you want when you want. And So
Well,
when
those are
there's
the kids that are taught by the internet, you know?
right, exactly. And so, and Mr. X here, he was an outdoor kid. He didn't spend a lot of time on the internet. He didn't spend a lot of time in front of a TV. And it shows. It shows
Mm-hmm.
that this, you know, my daughter's kind of a media mogul. She understands uh, everything about music. She has a catalog in her brain of every movie going back into the 20s, 30s, and 40s. Same with music. She loves movies. She loves music, and so he is like we'll make references all the time and drop like how you and I have always
Right.
done. We'll drop movie quotes, and he doesn't get any of them, and we find it hilarious and endearing that he does not get a single one of them. When then we have to explain the joke. So, like
Yeah.
for instance, they were hanging out in Kate's room, and I walked up the stairs and the door's open, and I kind of jokingly yelled down the hall, like, "What are you kids doing in there?" And Kate turns and he goes, "He's making violent love to me, mother," which is a quote from It's a Wonderful Life. And he like went completely stiff and was just like, "What are you doing? Like, why would you say
Right.
that?" And we're all laughing, even my mom, because my mom's a big fan of that movie too, is just laughing, but it's always funny because he just doesn't get those kind of references, and it's because he was not raised by the internet. He was raised turning wrenches with his dad.
Sure.
He was raised out in the yard. He was raised hunting and fishing. He was raised playing with his brothers and not being you know put in a bubble like
Right.
all these kids are. So, and I needed to let the mom know. I needed to let the mom and dad know that it's noticed that the man shakes my hand every time he walks in the door. He shakes my hand every time he leaves my house. He looks at me in the eye, and it's genuine. The amount of respect that has been built into him is uh, impressive. And he's an impressive kid, and I actually very much care for him. And so I wanted to let them know that, and I think it was a pretty solid bonding moment because apparently this is new for their family, where the boys apparently tend to couple with girls that their families are a bit snooty and look down their noses at these boys,
Yeah.
and are not don't treat them well. And so his mother was very touched and said, "Finally, somebody noticed." And I think that as a society, we really need to do that more. We really need to. We're really quick to point out negative stuff because it's fun, but we always forget to actually, when someone's doing the right thing, be
Yeah.
quick to point that out too. Be quick to actually make an effort to put sincere words behind a sincere sentiment and say, "Hey, look, um, I see and acknowledge the type of person you are or the thing that you did, and I want you to know it got noticed. And you're doing great, or you are a really cool person." You may not hear that a lot, but here it is, and it goes so far. And when it's genuine, people actually know that it's genuine, but then they also know that when you're telling them negative stuff, that it's probably true too.
Right.
That it's not just you complaining. It puts validation to your words when you're willing to actually put forth the positive aspects of a person and actually vocalize them in a public forum, you know, and you can do it in private too. Sometimes that's the more appropriate situation. Kind of depends on the situation, obviously. But
I think
I think it's
I think you're right
go ahead.
because even in corporate culture, particularly where I work over at Redacted, there's such a strong culture of just harping on and beating down all the negative aspects of somebody's work or when things fall apart or whatever. And I actually had a conversation similar to this we have a new boss in our neck of the woods, and it was asking about what a culture shift might look like, and I was like, just a moment or two of recognition for the raw output of work that we're doing and the impact that has on the business would probably go a really long way with a ton of people that work throughout this organization, because not for nothing, but we're just used to just getting our asses beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that would be
Yeah.
a really good start. Cause I think you're right. Like that seems to be a common thread in work
People need
culture and in
acknowledgement.
society. Yeah. And I'm
You know,
not
they
saying
need it.
like chase validation and shit, but like a
Right.
little recognition here and there goes a really long way when, you know, your entire
Especially
world
when
is
it's
comprised of go, go, go.
right, and especially when it's unexpected. They go, "Oh wow, people noticed the hard work I'm doing. People
Yeah.
noticed that I go out of my way to be a respectful human being." And so whenever like I do this especially with people with young kids. And I look at the kid. I don't look at the parents. I look at the kid and I was like, "Your parents have done a really good job with you.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate how well behaved you are. How good your manner set is incredible, and you're doing a good job. You're making your mommy and your daddy proud.
Nice.
I'm very happy to see that." And the parents are like, "Oh wow, okay, cool," But parents also need to hear it too when they've done a good job, because it's so rare, especially nowadays. But that when parents do a good job, they need to hear it. They need to be told, all of the work you've done, all of the sleepless nights, all of the hard talks, all of the sticking to boundaries when it's hard, when the kid is crying or screaming or throwing a temper tantrum, and you've trained them out of that by actually keeping those boundaries. It paid off, and you've got well-behaved children, and it's something that I think resonates with them long term.
Yeah.
Because it has a lasting effect to go, okay, there it is. There's the validation we needed to continue on this path instead of like, because every parent's like teetering on the cusp of giving up that particular path because they don't see the incremental results.
Yeah.
And so once they have a kid that they've kind of done a good job of actually turning into a well-adjusted kid, it shows that they made the right decisions, and that path was the right path. So I try to go out of my way as often as possible, with the kids' friends since they were little all the way till now, to any clients that bring kids in, and the kid isn't a monster. However, I am not afraid at all when a child is misbehaving in any capacity to point it out to the parent.
Mm-hmm.
And go, your kid sucks, and you should do something about that.
Right.
And they're like, "Haha." I was like, "I'm not joking. Go handle that." Like,
Right.
and they're like, "Oh, we had an infamous 10-year-old birthday party with Oliver that 3 of the 5 kids that came to my house were absolute monsters. Like throwing food across my living room, telling me to shut up in my house, that kind of stuff. Like,
I'm sure that went over really well.
oh man, I threatened to throw that kid out in the snow, and I was like, "I hope you don't get hypothermia before your parents come to get you." Like, and when the parents came to pick him up the next morning, Erin said she was glad she wasn't around, that she had gone to work, and she wasn't around for when the parents came to pick up their kids, and I let them know exactly how their behavior was throughout the night.
Nice.
And they thought, all 3 of them thought I was joking at first. I was like, "I'm not joking. Your kid's never allowed here again. You need to take him off my property." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And then they just like walk away.
That's
And
hilarious.
the two that were really good, I made sure that their parents knew they were well behaved. They helped me out with stuff. They were, they were very polite, and they're allowed over at any time. But I think there needs to be kind of more honesty with that. I think the kids and parents need to hear feedback that isn't mean. It doesn't have to be mean. I wasn't mean about it. I mean, like, your kid sucks. He's a dick, but I but I let them know that their behavior was poor, and that this obviously isn't. And at one point with one of them, I was like, they're like, "Well, I'm sorry, this has never happened before." I was like, "You and I both know that this isn't a first time thing.
Yeah, this
that
cannot
is an
be
ongoing
true.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is ongoing behavior, and you knew, and you were just crossing your fingers and hoping that he'd be good at my house.
Yeah, you
because
just
he's never
pawned him
good at
off for the
yours.
night because you are the
Yeah.
full-time warden of this inmate. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was it was, and so even as the kids get to be adults, I mean, Mr. X here is 23 years old.
Mhm.
You know, he's not a boy. In fact, he's solidly in adulthood. You know, he's running his own company. He's making great money with potential to make even better money. He's incredibly responsible, and so he's already got a very solid adult life path. And so, but even then, you know, the parent melted when she heard that other grown men noticed that her son was behaving in a manner that she could be proud of.
Well,
You
that's
know,
great.
and
I mean, I can certainly
yeah.
empathize. When I was his age, I dated a lot of girls whose parents talked down or looked down on me for social reasons,
Yeah.
economic reasons, religious
I
reasons.
married one.
Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
just like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's probably meant the world to his mom to hear that. Then, all things considered, now that I'm looking back, even self-reflectively, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, so what's going on in Seattle?
Yes, tonight we turn our attention back to Seattle. Now, every week I say I'm not going to pick on
We
Seattle
try.
some more.
We try.
Really.
Seattle, we're really trying, but you're making it so hard. You're making it so hard not to keep dipping back
The information from Seattle is wafting out as far as where you and I live in all directions. And it's hard not to stay abreast of the situations in Seattle. So you are a little closer to this than me, although I have read a handful of reports. My take on the situation is that in Cal Anderson Park, which, if memory serves, is Capitol Hill.
Oh yeah. Cal Anderson Park is not only Capitol Hill, but it is basically a block and a half away from where my old shop was in Seattle.
Right on top.
And it was the epicenter. It was the epicenter for the
Chop Chaz stuff. Yeah.
Chaz situation. That's where they were trying to do gardening in the needle and banded infested grass that you know that is Cal Anderson Park.
Sawgrass? Nope, it's needles.
So, yeah, you don't go walking through Cal Anderson Park alone at night.
No.
Like, anyone who's lived in that area knows better. That is just a place to get mugged. There's a lot of nefarious sexual activity going on in that park, drug activity going on in that park. It's right dead in the middle of Capitol Hill, which is the neighborhood in Seattle that this is in. And it is a notorious park. However, it's not alien to other types of, you know, they do block party stuff there. They do, you know, concerts and stuff. But they also, like Sean Feucht, who is a evangelist singer guy, long blonde hair guy, who's touring around the country doing singing, you know, revival stuff. A couple, I think twice, he did baptisms and a revival concert in Cal Anderson Park during COVID.
Yeah.
And so it's not, this isn't the first time something like this has occurred in this park. But yeah, Cal Anderson Park, man, it is a notorious park.
It's the epicenter of Capitol Hillness.
Yeah,
And there was a praise and worship concert from several different churches, and the response by everyone around, which we can get into the media B-roll afterwards, was absolutely unglued. So you had self-proclaimed members of Antifa there. You had the regular rank and file that lived there. All of the LGBTQ plus
and the
community.
upper dozens, if not hundreds, of anti-protesters there.
Yep. And they just kept fucking with people that were there to enjoy this concert at the park until a point in which the Seattle Police Department got involved, shoved a few people away, told them to keep their distance because it's fine to protest whatever you want to, but the minute you lay hands on somebody, it's a whole different ballgame. And then eventually pepper sprayed some people because they just continued to push it too far. Now, there were, in every video I saw, there were dozens of cell phones being held up to the situation. So if you want to, you can catch this from literally any perspective on any social media site that you want to and make the judgment for yourself. But to me, it looked like the people that were participating in this praise and worship situation were being absolutely antagonized to the point that the police had to split them up just for being there.
Yeah.
So what followed was Bruce Harrell's official response. He's the mayor of Seattle, about how right-wing religious hate groups are not allowed and shouldn't have a platform. And like,
he blamed the Christians for being attacked.
Yeah. He blamed just them being in existence for being attacked, and that they had every right to be, more or less, and that Seattle's proud of their LGBTQ plus community. And there was no anti-LGBTQ anything going on. There were people just enjoying a Christian rock concert. Same as there would be the End Is Nigh protesters that you find down by the ballpark that would have walked around with their megaphones if there was a Let's Praise Satan concert going on. And all the Satanists showed up. Although I don't think the kickback from the rank and file would have been near as hard. And I have a lot more thoughts on that. But that's kind of what happened. And it's abhorrent behavior.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So large groups of Antifa, and then a large contingent of the transgender community and the gay community showed up to protest just the existence of this. They weren't like, it wasn't an anti-gay concert at all. It was, and there's a lot of, not gay people that live in Capitol Hill too. And it's a big park, and they got a permit. It wasn't like they weren't permitted. The city gave them a permit to do it, and they went and did it. And like I said before with the Sean Floyd stuff, it's not the first time that they've had this type of event there, where it's singing and praying and worship on in the park. But for this particular situation, they weren't having it, and they started rallying up around the concert goers and started chucking things at them and screaming profanities at them, and then started getting physical with a couple of them, and then the cops got called, and the cops just came in to kind of keep the peace and keep them separated, much like they do every May Day. Right. And then of course the same folks decide to turn, like what they do with May Day, turning it into a riot. They decided to, F around and find out.
And they're calling for investigations on the police for brutality stuff. And it is full baby rage from the mayor's office to the community of people that wanted to go pick on other people. Like, you shouldn't be here because I said so. And I'm going to go to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
Whether it is congruent with modern law or not, because your freedom of expression is not as important as mine.
Right.
That's the argument.
So, the Seattle Police Officers Guild, they released a statement today making it pretty clear that they're sick of Antifa's violence and they're done with it in the Seattle area. However, the mayor has doubled down. Now he's playing the race card after blaming Christian Rally for violence by Antifa and transgender activists. And as of, I think, the beginning of this show, there was a pastor by the name of Russell Johnson. And Russell Johnson is a pastor at Pursuit Northwest, which is a church in the Seattle area. And he has a history of being political before he was a pastor, so he's got a background in understanding how this stuff works. He decided to actually take it to City Hall today. They have a meeting at City Hall for City Council and the mayor, and they're having a prayer and worship service on the steps of City Hall. I would imagine they're going to get an enormous amount of pushback. There'll probably be more fireworks. But they just lawyered up with the most hardcore First Amendment lawyer that the Pacific Northwest pretty much has to offer. And they're going after the mayor. They're going to say, how dare you?
Well, and they
You
need to,
infringe on.
because the mayor is in charge of the police, and the police don't even stand with the mayor on this one.
Right. And it's a massive violation of First Amendment rights. Like, they have every right to sing and with a permit, sing and pray in a park. They have every right to do that without being accosted, without there being consequences as they try to, blur the lines of what free speech actually means. No, they have a permit. They have a permit to be there. They have the right to do it. Just like if you guys have a month-long parade and festival all over Capitol Hill, no one has the right to spit on you, throw things at you, and be belligerent towards you and assault you. They don't have the right to do that. I would call for the arrest of those people as well. I would call for police to keep those people separated from you. I don't agree with what you're doing. I don't think that what you guys consider to be pride is really pride. I think it's shamelessness more than anything. I've been subject, after being up on that hill for over a decade, I've been subject to every pride on that hill every year, and it's illegal. The things that happen in the streets are allowed, but they are illegal acts with adults doing things openly in the streets. Nothing like that was happening. You just don't like who they are, so you think that it's okay to assault them for their First Amendment rights. And the mayor is backing them up. The mayor is saying, yes, they're bigots, so therefore they deserve it. First of all, you've got to prove that they're bigots. And second of all, how dare you? That's not your purview. Your purview is to protect the people of Seattle and to run the city. You shouldn't even be close to this. But yeah, it's one of those things that there's two people who are really on the scene right now. And if anybody cares to look up what's been going on, you've got Jonathan Cho. He's an on-the-ground reporter who's down there right now at City Hall. So if you want to see what's going on right now, look up Jonathan Cho. And then Brandy Cruz, who's an old reporter from the area. She's a well-known reporter, but during COVID, she got done with all the nonsense, dipped out, and started doing her own thing. And she's been wildly successful with her independent journalism stuff. And she's slowly but surely, she was pretty left for a while, but kind of got like disenfranchised with the journalism media of the Seattle area, and just like, I can't do this with this COVID stuff. So, but now she's starting to see the kind of the tyrannical overview of what Washington in general, but specifically Seattle, is doing to its population, including with Second Amendment stuff, which has been real hot lately. And she's like basically telling people, get out, move to Montana. Like, this ship is sinking, and they're violating the Second Amendment and are going to get
in the First Amendment
clobbered in the First Amendment. But she's actually quoted as saying, I just saw a video with her today, and she's quoted as saying, I stand with the Christians. I'm not even Christian. I'm going to go stand on those steps and pray with the Christians and sing with the Christians, because this is a wild violation of the First Amendment. And for the mayor to be protecting it, to be advocating for it, is absolutely. They're calling for his resignation, which obviously won't happen. But it is an insane situation that I don't think we've seen the end of. I think we're going to be getting updates on this situation throughout the next couple of months.
And I think it's growing, because underneath all this is the question I had for tonight, kind of spurned on by this story, which is, why is freedom of religion cool with everybody until Christ is involved? Like, and I know people like this personally that are perfectly A-okay if you are a Buddhist or a Hindu, but if Christ is involved, you're a radical, you're a right-winger, you're a bigot, you're an idiot, you're a whatever. And I've long carried a philosophy about not agnostics, but people that believe there is no God, it's all science instead, like the Richard Dawkins of the world. Atheism. Thank you. My philosophy on atheism is there's one of two reasons that you're an atheist, and there's only two. One, very slim chance you've never been exposed to religion whatsoever, and you don't have a concept of faith as a result of that. Or the wide majority, which is option two, which is every single atheist I've ever personally met, you've been hurt by the church in your past. Mm-hmm. You probably were maybe even really on fire for a faith-based belief in whatever that was, and you were taken advantage of that hit you on a personal level to the point, or someone hurt you to the point that because they did it in the name of God, you have turned your back completely on that, and now none of it's real, and it's all just hogwash because you're believing in something. Like, I still struggle with where I land in faith, but I ultimately don't tyrannically hate people that believe differently than I do. I usually try to talk it out and understand why that is, because I perpetually challenge the things that I believe in as well. But it kills me that it's the Christ portion of it, because it's such a common thread over and over and over and over, that my guess is the same reason the atheists are atheists is likely why people are so headstrong anti-Christianity. And some of it might be out of pride because you don't want to be told how to live your life. Some of it might be an accountability piece because you're doing something that you know doesn't jive with societal's faith-based whatever, because we all came from Quaker Christian background in America. At least that's the principles the country was founded on. So rebelling against all of that, rebelling against all of that seems to be at least antithetical to the system or the norm. But at the end of the day, it really, really, really burns me, because while I understand all the words I just said, I don't get it. I don't get why you can't have the same amount of animus towards somebody else of a different faith that also, I mean, take radical Islam and radical Christianity. Both of them are not real pro-LGBTQ on the outside.
But one of them gets a pass.
One of them gets a pass. I mean, it's like, dude, you wouldn't be able to have the same type of pride parade in Islamic native Islamic countries that you would in native Christian countries.
That parade would be a consistent rainbow off the top of a tall building, is what that would be in most of those countries.
But you choose not to see that. Oh, no, that's not, but Christians, you guys should be ashamed of your bigotry and how dare you and pearl clutching. And it kind of burns me that continues to appear everywhere I go when people attack Christianity. And it's like, there's a philosophy in Christianity, the follow me because I'm following Jesus, which for my entire life, agree with me or not, I think is repulsive ideology. Yeah. I think I would rather just follow Jesus because I want to follow Jesus, and you can come along too, and then maybe we both can do that. But like, you're prone to failure. You are fallible, right? And it even teaches that in the same scripture that you purport to believe in and teach yourself. So
all have fallen short. All have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. Like,
nobody's perfect, and that could be why you got hurt by the church back in whatever it was.
You were hurt by people, not by God.
And that's the piece that, as I describe it, they get more and more defensive and vitriol continue. You could see flames in their eyes, and it's like, I've obviously struck a nerve, and I don't want to continue talking about this. Because
it's an unnatural nerve, though. Yeah, and you can feel it. It's an unnatural nerve. There's an unnatural response to it, and you're like, "Why are you so vitriolic towards just this?
Only this,
and only this."
You're the most level-headed person I know until this gets brought up, and then you're
You're willing to give a pass to an entire religious group, because you call it culture.
Correct.
Because that's their culture. It's okay. I'm willing to give them a pass on the fact that they don't even think of women as human beings.
Right.
I'm willing to give them a pass on the fact that it is okay to have sex with 9-year-olds.
Right.
I'm okay to give, a pass to all of these egregious concepts that all come from that religion of peace, while they literally have terrorist organizations on every continent.
Right.
And we're supposed to just go, don't pick on them. No, we're not picking on them. We're pointing out certain things that are going to be a problem for you as an atheist as well as it is for me.
Yeah, or
Like,
as
so
a
that's not
or as a
as a woman.
a product of Western civilization at times. And I'm
Right.
not picking on just Islamic faith by itself. There
No,
are
not at
plenty
all.
of other examples out there where
Absolutely.
the dogma is so absolutely corkball anti-Western civilization that is just goes completely unseen by those that protest against Christianity specifically. And I
So
don't get why
my
it's so cool with everyone until Christ is in the middle of it.
well, my argument is that the reason why it's unnatural is because it's supernatural. Is that it is spiritual warfare. The minute Christ's name gets brought up is when they flare. And it doesn't seem natural because it isn't. It isn't natural to be that hateful of one particular thing that has a fraction of a fraction of the offenses that you claim it has to any other thing that you could categorically compare it to.
Right.
And so, but why does it cause such a reaction? And it's spiritual warfare. It's because truth shines through darkness, and they go, "Oh,
and believe me, opening myself to a moment of vulnerability here, I too have also been vilely hurt by the church, and still understood then and now that it was not the church that came at me, it was the people that were representing that place that I had extreme grievances with for the actions that they took.
Because of their behaviors that were actually anti-Christ.
Correct.
Those behaviors were not in Christ. If they were, you would not have been hurt or aggrieved by them.
Right.
But because they were
stood
acting
so
against
strongly behind this veil of faith as the reason why they did it,
right?
that I was like, actually, that is the worst perversion of what you teach, by the way. And as a result, I really don't want to fellowship with you, commune with you, hang out with you. I just don't. Yeah. I'm good. So it's not as if
I'm a lot of church hurt out there.
It's not as if I'm numb to the idea that this has gone on. I've lived through this on more than one occasion. One was really bad. But at the end of the day, it seems to me more and more that this is the most amount of fireworks we're going to start to see. And I think it's going to continue to get aggressive and aggressive and aggressive. Seattle's just kind of
escalate.
The first point, and an obvious point. Like, I would picture this would go on in any Western, like, coastal city in the United States, because they're all kind of the same place. But
yeah, you're looking at Portland, the least churched city in the United States, or Seattle right up next to it, which is close as well. But no, you're not wrong. There's a lot of church hurt that goes on. And my mom always said when I was younger, she goes, you don't bring, and I don't know where she heard this from. It's probably a quote from like Chuck Missler or something, but you don't, there's no cars in the garage of church that don't need repair.
Sure.
So like you're not in there because you look perfect. You're not there because you are perfect. You're there because exactly the opposite. You need heavy repair.
And for the record, this includes the people that work for the church.
Right.
Like, there's no exception to this.
None at all. None at all. And we need to create, two things need to happen within the church. There needs to be, an obvious set of accountability at all times, and a good church will have that. But there also needs to be an enormous amount of grace from the goers to church who realize that you're walking into a room where the point of it is that everyone in there is a sinner and isn't perfect and is going to be flawed human trash, and that they're going to act within their flesh, and they're going to be the vessels that sin made them. And so once you realize that and go, you know what? And there are times when it's too egregious. Don't get me wrong. When it's too egregious and the hurt is real. But I don't think that the hurt should be blamed on the faith, the church, God, anything like that. I think it should be blamed on the person hurting you or the people hurting you, and that
There's so much nuance to that, because
yeah.
I'm inclined to agree, unless the church knows about the egregious act and remains silent about it and takes no action. And I'm not saying that's religion's fault,
Then
but
they're
that
then
church
they're not a
ought to
church
be
walking in Christ.
correct. That church ought
that
to be held up accountable for that. So, like,
agreed.
again, it's hard to be so black and white in this discussion, but I agree with what you said.
Yeah.
I just think there's layers to this that.
Oh yeah, and don't get me wrong, the
Yeah.
church can be at fault for it too.
Yeah.
And the church needs to be held accountable for that. I mean, otherwise, bad doctrine, we go, oh, bad doctrine's fine too. They're misinterpreting all these things, and now you're in a church that allows polygamy or whatever because they have bad, that's bad doctrine. That's bad church. So like, but you have to be able to discern if the teaching of that church is actually following proper doctrine, and that the leadership is a humble leadership that is looking to not only draw you closer to Christ, but also draw themselves closer to Christ and be accountable to their flock. And that's one of the reasons I yanked my family out of like Mars Hill in Seattle, because it was a big screen. Mark Driscoll, who can be great sometimes, but he was also a flawed man who got in trouble for, fraud.
I was going to say a lot of fraudulent stuff.
Yeah. He's made a bit of a comeback. I'll grant him, that trust is probably low, but everyone deserves a second chance kind of thing. As long as it's not like sexual conduct with children, that doesn't get a pass for me. But in his particular case, I could not have my family learn from a screen. Like it was a screen. That man is not he doesn't know any of us. He's not accountable to us, and we're not accountable to him. He can't hold me in accountability and go, hey, Lucky, guess what? You're cheating on your wife and this is wrong. Let's go sit down. Let's go have a serious talk. You, me, and God, let's go. And, or whatever the case may be. Like I'm supposed to be accountable to that man, and he's supposed to be accountable to us, and that is the truest and purest form of that relationship, because honestly, our direct connection to Jesus is a one-on-one relationship.
That's it.
So
there's religion, and then there's a personal relationship with what you believe, right?
Right.
And there is a distinction. Similarly, and I say this a lot in my professional life, there is a very real difference between making a difference and making a change. Often, to make a difference, you need to make a change, but they are mutually exclusive things. You can still make a difference in what you're doing without making a change. So the question becomes, well, how do I find the right doctrine? And realistically, that comes down into, if you're putting your stock into a faith, it has to reinforce that from, in Christianity's case, the word, right? It can't just be somebody willy-nilly throwing in doctrine and ideology that is counteractive to the word of God, if that's what they're there to teach and preach, right? So that's a really good start. The other side of that is that you'll know, like inside you will feel a state of security when you hear these words and you recognize and respond to them, because it's impacting it's soul food, right? It's impacting your soul to some degree. But I have had some wild conversations when I try to like break apart ideologies a little bit, particularly ones I disagree with, legendarily so, the 12-step program. Now, look, on its surface, if it saves somebody's life and it gets them out of a situation where they're going to wind up killing themselves because of overuse due to being subject to an addiction that's taken over their life, I could see there's purpose in this. I can see that there's a great community of people around you that can save you. But my problem is that the 13th step of every 12-step program seems to be to get fucked up with your sponsor and you wind up back in step one. And if you really unpack the wires between each of those steps, you start to find the reinforcement of the core tenet, which is you are always in a state of addiction and recovery. Like you are always an addict. You are always in a state of recovery and you're never going to be above this. And I firmly disagree with that. Now, maybe that's me being, I don't know, arrogant, but at the same time, I have to imagine that you were you somewhere in there before you clicked on that website or fixed that needle or found the bottom of that bottle or whatever the case is, that you can once again get through this and be that person again and overcome this addiction. And they don't let you do that. They never let you do that. And I think the 12-step program supplements an addiction for a new addiction. And that is the trust of being within the community of people that reinforce the exact same narrative. And people that are legendary 12-step people have violently, to a point, attacked me. And I'm just like, hey, man, I'm just calling your ideology how I see it. I could be dead wrong, man, but we're just talking here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's the way I see this baked into the literature at every step of the program in its totality, is to supplement an addiction for a new addiction, which might be more healthy than the needle or the bottle or the website or the whatever it is you're struggling with, but it's not helping you. It's just prolonging the inevitable cycle of step 1 to step 12. It's designed that way.
Yes, agreed.
So I know that's a departure to what we're talking about, but like I have tried to pick apart some ideologies before to not much success, particularly those that really buy into it. You know what I mean? But like you'll know, like, I don't know how to explain it, but you'll know. You'll find a way to know when it's the right doctrine for you or the right fellowship group or the, you know, insert religious epitaph here.
But to get us kind of back on track, because I agree with you entirely on that, but like basically one of the reasons why I know is, and it's a really easy self-check, is that historically speaking, Christianity has always been at ridiculed, or like every week we have the persecuted Christian, not every week, every month, 1 week out of the month at church. John Leffler gets up and he's an old radio host, but he's got a lot of intel all over the world where missionaries are, or where Christian groups are in Africa and in Southeast Asia and in the Middle East and all over the place. And we actually have a lot of people. One of our pastors is actually from Pakistan and helps out there. And he does an update on like the hundreds and thousands of Christians that are getting tortured and killed in villages all over the globe, and going, this is something we need to pray about. This is an area we need to pray about. These are where they're being persecuted. This is in China. They're not allowed to, kids are not allowed to read the Bible. Adults can, but under particular supervision. Or this, 12 girls were just kidnapped in the Congo and all the men were killed in a church, stuff like that. So, but it's kind of a barometer of understanding for me is, when they say that if you're pissing the most people off, you're over the target, it's kind of that same similar concept where I'm like, people are unhinged about Christianity to the point where you're like, you are unnaturally mad at this. Right. And to me, that is an indicator of truth. That's an indicator of, oh, okay, this is exactly where I need to be, due to the fact that there's just an enormous amount of spiritual hatred and global hatred and finger pointing and anger towards Christianity that I'm like, there's got to be something to this. If it's pissing off all of the worst people, then there's got to be something to it. So, and obviously I have a lot of, background in theology and but it's just one of the side rail barometers where I can go kind of bounce it off of that. If anything starts to if I question anything, I go, oh, but there's that.
Right.
And all so no, there's a lot that in modern times and modern age really kind of is putting a spotlight on this concept that Christianity, obviously in media, in TV, in television, or in movies and in music and any other type of media, the one in comedy, the one thing they're allowed to go after is Christianity.
Right.
And nothing else. Like anything else is kind of off limits. But it's open season on Christianity. And that goes to show the same thing that we're talking about with this is that like you have noticed that why is it that you can't go after any other faith and not get an enormous amount of pushback?
Right.
But Christianity is open season.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we're hovering directly above truth under the shield and spiritual shielding of Jesus. And I think that it bothers Satan and it bothers the world because of that. And all we can do is be light and salt and light, and just be something that is different and shows them that it's different and shows them that it is something that is really love, whether or not you agree with it on a philosophical level. That's the truth. That's the reality of it.
Who's hitting you up this time?
No, it's the KCRCC meeting. So they're heading down there for that, and there's a lot of contention of the new youth chair, the old youth chair. Not to switch gears real quick, but yeah, the youth chair that we did not like resigned.
Oh,
and so
happy days.
Amongst an enormous amount of public pressure, because he. Well, first of all, once he's a groiper, or at least adjacent, and second of all, he didn't do the job. He'd been there for 2 or 3 years and never held he's the youth chair. He's supposed to bring in college age kids to help or be a part of the Republican Party, and he never once did anything to bring a single person in there. So he just sucked at his job, but also the only people he even associated with and did weird hijinks type of shenanigans with were the groipers. So
well, I'm sure there's another podcast out there for him to air out his grievances with.
Yeah, yes, there is. Yeah, his one of his business partners is on it actually.
Hey, you had a debut tonight.
I do.
Yep, you have a new hat, and it's going to be centered around the return of Q.
Return of Q.
Have extreme tinfoil hat envy, chat, as we enter Conspiracy Corner.
All right. I made a new hat just for this segment. I had one, but I was jealous of yours, so I decided to do a new one, and I'm very happy with it. I think it turned out really well.
I love it.
I'm getting all the proper feed through my antenna. Yeah.
Got to crunch down that antenna. I don't have an antenna. Now I got to figure out an antenna.
Yeah,
so this week it's the return of Q ?
The return of Q. So for those of who don't know, Q was an online presence, and that's the best way to describe it because no one knew if it was one person or multiple people, but they went by Q. And it was very cloak and dagger during the leading up to the 2020 election. And Q posted a lot of pictures that would suggest that they were involved heavily or close to Trump and the president. But did a lot of ciphering, and I think they started on 4chan. And
I was about to say it sounds like a 4chan sect to me.
It was, but it got huge.
Blistering news on 4chan recently. But go on.
Yeah, right. Um, and what ends up happening is in the span of a couple of weeks, he blows up. This Q situation blows up, and it might have even predated all of this. This is just when I took notice of it,
Sure.
and when
I
I
think that's
noticed
when
that
the world took notice of it. Yeah.
right. And so, and Q became this big secret op kind of situation
Yeah.
where people were waiting for Q drops, and then he'd drop a bunch of like cryptic kind of riddles with mixed with numbers and stuff, and people would like numerology the hell out of this thing
Mm.
and really try to feed their own information into it. There was whole YouTube channels based off people who were trying to decipher Q drops. And the term "trust the plan" came out of that movement, where they're like, the the military's in charge, Space Force is going to handle it. We've got this plan. He's going to like not win, but then win. Trust the plan. Everyone sit back. We got it handled. And I never bought into it. Like, I always like, this seems so cryptic. Why not just come out and say it? Why not just like
It
put up a
reminded
good
me
fight?
of like astrology, where you're like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be responsible for your own actions or words. Just blame the planets,
Right,
and
exactly.
the celestial bodies. Yeah.
And I think it was an actual psyop. I think that what it was telling people to sit back, don't do anything. We have it handled. And I think it worked really well. I think a lot of people didn't take action in areas that they may have and gone and helped or did something or volunteered for something or even fought a city council member or whatever the case may be, even on a federal level, like
Right.
really pushed harder because they all kind of bought into this Q thing, and Q was telling them, don't worry about it. We got it handled. And a lot of people like me thought the same thing. But the thing that I don't think that they recognize, well, and that being said, apparently Q's back.
Mm.
So I've been seeing a lot of posts, which I just kind of rolled my eyes and went, okay, this, you cannot have, I would imagine it's not going to be back for long, because I think that the following Q had lost all of its traction when 80% of the predictions it made did not come true.
Right.
And it left a lot of people, going, what happened? I thought Q said everything, and so I at least I hope that it doesn't have the traction it used to have. That being said, it's obvious that I don't believe in Q. I think it's a psyop. I think it's something that they actually
Just for the listeners, because I perceive that as psychological operation. What is psyop?
precisely that psychological operation.
Yeah. We use
And
it
a
as
psyop-
slang around here, but I just want you guys to know what we're talking about if you're tuning in for the first time.
Typically, psychological operation is typically perpetrated by, without going too far into the they,
Right.
An
organization or somebody that's attempting
or
to influence.
government entity, or something to that effect. If you want to call it the deep state, if you want to call it whatever the case may be, there's multiple facets of this, and CIA or whatever can put in, which CIA has been known to do many historically.
They may be
and
the
not,
progenitor of that term, in fact.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that being said, I do believe that it was probably a CIA psyop. But what it did do, and I think this was a byproduct that they did not expect, is it woke a lot of people up. It woke a lot of people up and actually got them involved. And for all the people that were sitting on the couch going, don't worry, Q's got it, there was another person who was standing up going, I didn't know any of this stuff, because they were dropping a lot of like knowledge too,
truth
but
adjacent stuff that was mixed in with crazy. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so, what it did is it woke a lot of people up in the sense that they went, the world is not as it seems. It's not what I thought it was. I can't I was just milling about my life, cooking dinner and going to my job and doing this, this and that and raising the kids and not paying attention. And it really made people pay attention.
Right.
And there was a lot of people who got jarred out of their normalcy of their life.
What is the
by
Matrix?
this.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And pulled out of the Matrix and thrown into the fight, essentially, of any type of activism that they were passionate about. And Q accidentally did that to a lot of people. My wife is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
My wife had a Q sticker on her car for a long time, and I gave her a lot of grief for it.
Mm-hmm.
She took it with grace and said, I don't care. And she still gives them credit. She doesn't believe any of the Q stuff anymore, and she took the sticker off, and everything's great. But like, even my mom was a part of it for a while. And, but they would follow it. They would like look at Q drops and look at other people trying to decipher it and stuff like that. And what it did do is activate my wife's brain. It activated her heart. It activated her understanding of what was going on in the world, where she was kind of surface level prior to that. And now she's a powerhouse of knowing what's going on, because then she realized, oh, wait a minute, I need to focus more locally. I need to focus more within the city, county, state of where we live, and we'll move out from there. But when she started realizing that a lot of the Q stuff wasn't coming to fruition, that a lot of it was hogwash, that, and then he disappeared when he was wrong a bunch and nobody heard from him for a while, that I think she slowly realized, okay, never mind. I don't need any of that.
Yeah,
that's
but
all.
It was a catalyst that became a spark that lit a fire into what she does now. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that did it for a lot of people. I think there was a lot of people that it accidentally did that to, and the PSYOP kind of backfired on them and created kind of a weird army of people who would not have been engaged or understand what they're doing if they hadn't tried to steer everybody to sit down and be quiet. We have it under control. Now they've got a bunch of people out there all over the country that have all been kind of activated and pulled out of the Matrix because of this ruse that they tried to pull on the people.
I've seen this once before without Guy Fawkes masks. And it was born of the Conservative Party, was a group of individuals that stormed into positions of our Congress, and they were known as the Tea Party. And the Tea Party were a bunch of truth-seeking folks that didn't really see within party lines eye to eye on everything. But from that was your Matt Gaetzes and your Trey Gowdy's and a whole bunch of people that were like, we're actually more concerned with seeking the truth, because all of this mire is horseshit. Like there's like, can we just boil this down to basic, is this correct or is this incorrect? And we'll start there. And from that were some legendary YouTube clips, particularly from Trey Gowdy, which I still occasionally watch just because I think they're hilarious around the Benghazi stuff and all that. But I have seen this before in politics, at least once in my lifetime, where a similar spark, I think the catalyst then may have not been as uniform around internet personalities such as Q. But these things do happen and will happen again for sure. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
That analogy is not lost on me.
So I'm not following Q. I'm not following the return of Q. I don't care. In fact,
I never did.
Well,
I could give 2 squirts of piss.
Nor did I.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but as far as conspiracies go, I think that it had some benefit to it, even if it wasn't real.
Yeah.
And isn't real, and so as far as, Conspiracy Corner goes, it is a conspiracy I do not believe in, but I believe that it had
the byproducts were unexpectedly cool. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, and especially on a personal level, like my wife wouldn't be, as active and engaged as she is had it not been for Q.
Yeah.
And so I do have to give it a little bit of credit, but it's,
Right.
Thanks, CIA, for waking up my wife.
For reasons that remain unclear. Thanks. Yeah, no, I have a very close friend of mine that is a big conspiracy theory nut, but I think he enjoys the conspiracy. I have two friends actually that are just like this. One's very close, the other one's a pretty good friend. I think they do it more for sport because it's entertainment, but it's like, oh, but what if, like it's just enough. Because when you said that in the pre-show notes, the return of Q, I instantly thought of Q, the omnipotent character from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
From Star Trek Next Gen.
Yeah, and I was like,
yeah,
well, okay.
I was always kind of personally hoping that's who it was behind the computer.
Me too. Like, who was that actor? I can't remember. Like, Reyes would kill me for this. John something maybe, but anyway, yeah, I was just like, oh man. But yeah, they love this stuff and bounce a lot of conspiracies off me all the time. A couple of people. Yeah. So I think it's funny, but I'm not a big buyer. No. I don't really buy into a lot of those things. Hello, Cynthia and Faster. It's good to see you again. Appreciate you coming back every week. We love to see it. So,
as far as this segment goes, the hats will be donned, but I need more suggestions from
the audience.
From the audience.
Hit us up.
If you want me to explore a topic, I'll come up with them if no one gives them to me, but it'd be a lot easier if they come up and I have to kind of explore something that maybe I don't even know about, or that I may have strong opinions about one way or the other, that I would love to kind of, put this hat on and tell you whether or not like green, red or green, I believe it or I don't.
Yeah.
And here's why, and maybe even look into the possible, I don't believe it, but here's a benefit I see from this.
Sure.
Or I think this is absolute trash, and I think that anybody who follows this needs to be checked out.
Checked out or checked in. Yeah, and we had a few people leaking into stream suddenly. If you're wondering why we're wearing tinfoil hats, this part of our show is Conspiracy Corner, thus the big C and the giant antenna from my co-host here. So that's good times. But yeah, hit us up, modernrelicspodcast@gmail.com if there's a conspiracy you'd like for us to unpack. Or a hot take on. Either way, let us know. We'll get into it. All right. Are we done with conspiracies?
I think we are, yes.
Conspiracy purge time. I was listening to a fantasy football podcast. One of the greatest segments I think I've ever heard a podcast do is, that siren from the movie The Purge? And the premise of The Purge is that, like, all crime is like okay or something for one night.
Right.
And I think this occurs once a year, once every 5 years, whatever their cadence is. So they have what's called a take purge. And so every year they give the takes that they're going to like purge out, where they're like, okay, the rest of the fantasy football season, we're not going to talk about this anymore, but I have to purge this take. I have to get it out into the world. Like, no judgment. This is off limits for the next hour and a half of this pod. And they just go after the most corkball, nutty bullshit, buy into the hype types of like fantasy football prospect purges and stuff like that every single year. And it is easily the funniest episode that I look forward to every year before draft day in the fall. So take purge. But yeah, we should do a modification of that at some point where we purge out all of our takes that are absolutely corkball, but we can't get in trouble for it. You can't aggregate it on the internet. You can't hold us accountable for it. They even have a cool siren and stuff. And then once the siren blares, they can't have any take purges, and they all feel like a weight has been lifted from their souls. It's great. It's hilarious. Yeah. So I've been thinking about remixing a take purge show for us once here too. So we'll
I would love that. Yeah. Just kind of take notes over the year of like,
sure. Yeah. Go back through some old show notes and be like, oh,
yeah,
wow. Maybe we should revisit that or not. Yeah. We'll think of something fun for that. So we saw some movies. We went in two different directions. I was going to see the one that you saw. Instead, I took a very Tom Cruise direction myself.
Were you going to watch Conclave?
No, because I had watched The Two Popes. Conclave was on the menu and still is, and I'm likely to get to that this week. But I was going to see Novocaine as well, because I think it's like $4.99 to buy it on the Windows movie rental place or whatever.
Don't buy it. Just it's for free on Paramount.
Oh, okay. Or I'll check it out on
Yeah.
Paramount. Yeah. But instead, so I guess I'll just start because I keep talking. I got in the car and drove immediately to my local movie theater on a holiday weekend to see a summer blockbuster. It was Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning with Tom Cruise. And the very first feeling I had was despair because I was the only guy in the theater.
What?
Just me. That same show that you and I, that theater up the road that you and I went to,
Yeah.
I raced over there because it's very close. One guy after the previews, one dude, sat right in front of me, 2 rows ahead, and I'm like, I literally filmed it and sent it to some of my friends. I'm like, are movies dead? Like, this is a summer blockbuster.
Well, that's the second movie you and I like when we went there and we watched that horrible Borderlands movie.
Yeah.
We were the only ones in the theater, which was fine for that particular movie because we could
it was trash.
We could crap talk it openly.
Yeah. We almost Mystery Science Theatered it. It was a good time. But no, because the theater itself had a loaded parking lot. There was a ton of people there seeing other movies, I guess. But I mean, half of them had to be the employees and stuff. But no, I saw a 9 p.m. show on a Friday night entering a 3-day holiday weekend as a kickoff summer blockbuster. Great theatrical release point for any movie that wants a lot of attention, is give them a 3-day weekend to rake in the cash. 2 dudes were in that theater, me and another guy. I didn't even know the guy. Yeah.
You should have sat by him and shared popcorn.
I did. I moved right next to him and just kind of stared at him the whole time like this. And he was very uncomfortable. So basically it's a over the top spy movie. They made it like culminating in all of the other Mission Impossibles. And none of those were written and produced to be a consistent storyline, save for maybe the last 1 or 2.
Right.
But they cleverly drew a bunch of points from MI1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like kind of wove this final big reveal storyline at the end of it. But it ended in such a way that I was very proud of. They didn't kill off the Tom Cruise, so spoiler ahead. He's still alive. He's great. He's doing awesome. His hair's never been better.
Has he ever died in a movie?
Yes, I believe he died in Magnolia or one of those like sci-fi ones, like the
Magnolia wasn't a sci-fi movie, but
either Magnolia or one of the sci-fi ones, like the End of Tomorrow or the Oblivion one or something like that. I think he has. No, because you might be right, dude. Because even in Interview with the Vampire, he shows up as a creature. At the end of that, like, you didn't get me. We'll have to look into that.
I wonder like with Tom Hanks and him being contractually obligated to pee in every movie that he's in. Really? I wonder if Tom Cruise is, dude, look that up. Think about that. Think about Tom Hanks pees in almost like League of Their Own, The Green Mile, Castaway. Like the list goes on and on. Like it's not all of his movies, but there's a good chunk of them where there's a extended peeing scene.
Edge of Tomorrow. He dies in Collateral. That should have been my first one. I love Collateral because he is a perfect representation of like the darkest part of humanity in that movie, and it's awesome, and he does a good job. He also dies in Valkyrie. Another movie I've seen where he
has
dies.
to. That's a historical,
correct,
historical movie.
Yeah. So of course he's died in at least 3 films. Whatever the case may be, time loops aside.
Yeah.
But they end this movie with the idea that there's going to be another film. And I'm like,
what?
Awesome. Because in my opinion, I think Tom Cruise needs to be done. But I don't want Mission Impossible to die. And like throughout all of this particular film, there's overtures a lot to, you have to take care of your team. And he's pointing this out to Benji and stuff. And Benji's kind of like, this isn't my team, Ethan, it's yours, blah, blah, blah. Like this kind of stuff. And there's some incredible acting also done by Shaun of the Dead. I can never remember.
Simon Pegg.
And he plays Benji in this too. And it's great. But it ends the way a Mission Impossible movie should have ended, and it leads you to believe there's going to be more to the next phase of this plot, which I think is fantastic, and not at all what they did with James Bond and should have, because James Bond legendarily has a ton of different actors for that character.
Right.
Pissed me off. I'll get to that. I keep threatening it on this pod. I'll get to that.
I want to
review
hear
one of these days. We'll dive deep, but
yeah, I want to do a good chunk on a James Bond.
Yeah,
like deep dive.
And I intend to. I'm ready. I'm ready to do it soon. Anyhow, I believe Tom Cruise needs to stop doing this, but he did a pretty good job in it for the type of movie that it is.
His doctors probably agree with you on that one.
I think he wants to kill himself for real on the set of a movie and being like, no one took it further than Tom Cruise, literally, right up into the end. It was a ton of fun. It's a big popcorn movie. A lot of it doesn't make sense. They were clever in the way they tied a lot of the storylines together. You get to see Tom Cruise and explosions and spy shit and pretty girls, and it's checking all the boxes for an excellent, 8.5, 9 meg movie for me, because it's just fun to sit back and be like, none of this shit is real, but let's watch Tom Cruise do some stuff. And we got it. There's some epic fight scenes in it. It's so good. It makes no sense at all. And like it's over the I remember the Pierce Brosnan era James Bond antics where it's like at one point the man makes like a wind sail surfboard, and he's like surf sailing sort of down a broken glacier piece of ice as a laser beam from outer space is like trying to cut him down like an ant underneath the magnifying glass. And it's like, it is bordering over the top to that degree with some of the stuff that we see in this movie, but it's all real. Very little of this is like, the action sequence is very little or CG'd because that's the Tom Cruise way. So he literally put his body through hell to do this, and I think he needs to stop doing it. But I want this franchise to go on, and I'll give it a good 8.5 megs because it really checked all my boxes. It's almost a 9 megger. It was so much fun, and I couldn't wait to watch it again. So maybe I'll do that when it comes back out for rent or something.
That has inspired me now. That because. I'll be honest, I don't think I've seen anything past the third one.
Sure.
So, and it's not that I didn't want to, it's just it never happened. And then the next one came out and I'm like, oh no, like now you're playing catch up. And what is this, the sixth one?
This is 6 or 7. Yeah.
Right. So I think I'm actually going to make a point of it starting tonight and start watching all of the Mission Impossible movies. I don't need to see one because I've already watched that one probably 20 plus times.
Yep.
So, but hold on. Apparently my computer isn't plugged in and my battery is low.
Oh no.
There it is.
Nice.
So, my two questions, so one, do you think that like I've got to watch these movies so that way I can, because it is right up your alley, but it's definitely right up my alley too. I've always been interested in them, but do you think that Tom Cruise desire to push himself, do you think that has any connectivity or correlation with his place in Scientology?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's a subconscious piece. I think that the obsession with power and the delivery of excellence at all times has driven him to do some pretty gnarly shit on the silver screen. And rightly so. Like, he's an excellent actor and he does, there's some roles where you're like, dude, this may be not for you. But there's a fun game you could play when you do rewatch movies where you have to ask yourself, pick a part in the movie and then ask yourself, would Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks be a better fit in this film at this role? And Tom Cruise kind of runs away with a lot of them. Good guy, bad guy, hero. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I think it does. I think it has a lot to do with the undying faith in oneself and the delivery of excellence through the recognition of power. That's a word that orbits this man because of Scientology in a lot of ways, and I think it's a very weird religion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me and Elron don't maybe see eye to eye on a lot of stuff comically, but yeah, I do. I don't think it's maybe as overt, but I think covertly, absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Um. Well, then, are you ready for my review?
That's it. Yeah, the final reckoning. Dot dot dot.
Well, that was I'm gonna work up to that one and actually watch all the other ones, and then hopefully by the time I'm done, it'll be near streaming. But so I did what I tried to do last week, and I watched Novocaine, and because it'd been recommended by a couple of people, it looked fun according to the trailer. The problem is that everything that looked fun in the trailer is everything that the movie was.
No.
So
they blew all the excitement on the 45-second
yeah,
trailer. That's horrible.
And it had potential. I've been really enjoying Jack Quaid. Jack Quaid is the main protagonist, and the actor who plays him, and he is actually the son of Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan. And he's been great in The Boys. He's been great in all the other things that I've been watching him in. He's really kind of a charming, enjoyable kind of,
I'm
guy.
shocked. I knew the Dennis Quaid part. I did not know the Meg Ryan part.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
So, but it had potential. It had a really great possibility, but they just plastered a kind of gross out film, action based gross out film over the top of a really basic plot line that was not, you didn't even really have to try to predict it. It just kind of went where you knew it was going. Like there was no and a lot of it was just like, okay, you had to stretch this concept in order for the plot to even move. Like the plot line is about a very mild mannered bank teller, soft spoken, and he's not a bank teller, he's the bank assistant manager. I take that back. And it starts off with them having a meeting and the manager doing a rah-rah before they open up in the morning, and you can tell he's just kind of floating through life. Well, you can tell he also has a shine for one of the female bank tellers, and that she also has one for him. So she's flirting with him, which is alien to him because apparently he's very not social. He's a gamer guy. But he gets
I know nothing of what you speak.
but he gets up enough nerve to go to she comes in and asks him to go to lunch with her because he does not fire her for spilling coffee on him or whatever. But and he gets up enough courage and goes, and when he's there, she is doting over this pie from this diner and wants to feed him, and he goes, no, that's okay, no, that's okay. No, I can't eat it. And she's like, whoa, why not? Well, it turns out he has a neurological disorder where he cannot feel pain. And he's had it since he was a kid, and he can't feel heat or cold. And so he's been told he has to drink his food because he could bite his tongue or swallow his tongue and not know it. So, and she finds this fascinating and then goes back, they go out on a date and then they go back to his place after she helps him out with a situation where he's getting picked on from an old high school person, where you find out that his name is, I can't remember what the character's name is, something Kane. Nathan Kane, and they called him Novocaine in high school because they could just punch him and he wouldn't get hurt, right? So, she kind of gets those guys, and he's smitten with her, and they go back to his apartment, and come to find out, he's covered in tattoos, like all over his body, that he did himself because he can't feel the pain, right? And the one thing that I will give it is, because there's another scene with the tattoo stuff, is that they actually kind of uh, must have consulted a tattoo artist. Because they actually had the right gear, equipment, and didn't put like they had a rotary pen, a battery operated rotary pen, and they didn't put a buzzing noise to it. It actually sounded like a rotary. I'm like, normally they put a fake even on Ink Master.
Right.
You can see them like tattooing with a rotary, which are typically you hear like a light whirring sound,
Right.
or
Well, those are pneumatic machines, are they not?
No,
but they have those.
Pneumatics are kind of obsolete now.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, they were a fad for.
But
a little
it
bit,
doesn't
went
have
away.
that crackle of electricity the way the old buzzer,
because that's an armature bar slapping back and forth between the coils and the contact point, and so and that's the buzzing everyone associates with tattooing. The loud buzzing, and typically even in like Ink Master, if someone's using a rotary pen, they'll add in the buzzing noise for the viewing audience.
So somebody was a continuitist that was a tattooer, and they were like, listen to this guy, he knows what's going on, don't fuck this up.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay.
So, and that's one of the things I can give it. However, from that point on, it was just kind of stale. Like the gag, all the like the ooh, oh, that must have hurt, kind of all of those gags were in the trailer. Like there was very few that weren't, and you really just didn't. Jack Quaid pulled as much out of this role and out of this plot and out of this script as he could. I think he did a wonderful job. The rest of the movie was cookie cutter at best.
Yeah.
It was, I didn't care how it ended. The ending was kind of like, yeah, that's how that goes. That's how that would have ended, and the bad guy was like comically dumb, and like it was supposed to have that kind of I think it was supposed to kind of mimic that energy from what was that great movie that we watched with Bill Skarsgård,
Boy Kills World.
Boy Kills World, right? It was supposed to kind of mimic that energy, and it just didn't have it. It didn't have the creativity, and it just didn't have the charm. I didn't think it. I think it had
Boy Kills World
charm.
was Bizarro Land for sure, but it was epic in every frame.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Novocaine, like, watch it. Don't expect a lot from it. Don't buy it.
Okay.
But I would say, because there's a couple of chuckles in it, but like nothing in it really kind of jumps out at you.
Yeah.
Like there's one of the cops that has like a couple of joke one-liners. He's a stand-up comedian and is in like commercials and stuff. And the one-liners are like, it feels like they built that scene so that one comedian could say that one line.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like it was flowing properly. That being said, probably 4.5 megs with a toothy end.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't anything special.
Jack Quaid brought 2 of those megs to the party.
Yeah, he did. And I really wanted it to be because it looked fun.
Sure.
It looked like a really fun, one of those turn your brain off movies where like you're going along for the ride. It didn't deliver. Like it was like, it felt rehashed. It felt like we'd already seen a lot of these things before, and you did in the trailer. And so they just added a lot of fluff to the trailer and then called it a movie. But so, 4.5 megs to the end of the meg, almost 5, but like, not really my one of my favorite watches recently. So
you had sent me a trailer. It's a sequel, and it's I can't remember the name of it. You'll know right away. The guy that goes on vacation but like beats everybody up, and he's trying to be on vacation. Nobody. Yeah. Speaking of Hollywood royalties, children, I did note in a quick cut scene to the local cop in whatever scene they're having in that trailer was Colin Hanks. So Colin Hanks is
Yeah.
going to be in there, and I haven't seen him do anything in a long time too.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe
I'm
maybe that
looking forward
movie
to
will step
Nobody
up a
too.
little bit because that looks
Yeah,
fun.
because
Yeah.
have you seen Nobody One?
No.
Oh, do yourself a favor.
Okay.
Nobody One is everything that Novocaine should have been.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so watch Nobody. Like my kids, we watch it on road trips. It's fun and it's violent,
Nice.
and it's Bob Odenkirk, who Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
You know, always plays the meek, nerdy guy or the guy in the suit and tie. He beefed up for this role so that he could actually do the fighting and learned how to fight.
Nice.
And was like, I want to do an action flick where I just go around beating people up. And it's amazing. Like, Nobody was one of the biggest surprise hits. I love it, and I'm way looking forward to it.
That's hilarious. He wanted his Jason Statham movie, and now he's getting a second one.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's fantastic. Not to get off movies real quick, have you heard about the live action remake of Lilo and Stitch?
Yeah.
And what they've done to that thing?
Yes.
I'm so angry. Lilo and Stitch was a huge movie for my kids growing up, and I really, really loved that movie. And not to, you know, I haven't seen it, so these are just potential spoilers. But I mean, the shark bad guy, he's not even in the movie. They like completely omit him as a character. The quirky little alien guy that like dresses in costumes and stuff, totally different character altogether. The Ving Rhames Men in Black CPS worker guy. Apparently he's a real bad guy in this, and they don't have like the PB&J sandwich. Like, they changed so many things, but from what I've heard, the most egregious thing that they did was, what's the theme of the movie? Ohana, right? Ohana means family. It means no one gets left behind, right? At the end of the movie, the older sister leaves Lilu with the state. She leaves her with CPS? In the state to get put into the foster system so that she can go to the mainland to go to college and pursue her dreams, because Lilo was getting in the way of that. So she went to go pursue her dreams in on the mainland to become, get this, a marine biologist.
Wow.
So you went to the mainland to do that instead of the one place where it's the best place on earth to learn how to become with great schools for it? You could have done that in Hawaii, and you had a community there. You could have had all of those people help you raise this child. They would have helped you after, especially all the stuff this is going on. Like, you had like what?
Oh,
like,
mahalo indeed.
Yeah, I don't. So I'm furious. Me and the kids have been like screaming about it for the last couple of days. But
Snow White was such a hit.
Just one after the other. It's like Disney's just like.
Well, dude, I did rewatch Deadpool and Wolverine, and there's a line in there where he's directing it at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he's like, "Do we have to do the multiverse thing? It's been miss after miss after miss," and those are just taking shots at Disney and Kevin Feige the whole time. But yeah, Disney, any chance I get to kind of shit on those guys because they continue to make misses after misses. I didn't read that far into it because Lilo and Stitch is not at all a part of my childhood or history, but I recognize why that's important. But like, no, it does not surprise me at all that seems egregious, though, that they would end the film on Child Protective Services, but you know. Okay. To come back to the Marvel thing. Sure. From what both of my kids have now come back and reported, because they're evil little gremlins that go see Marvel movies without their father now that they have boyfriends and girlfriends. And I'm very upset about that. But they went to go see the new Thunderbolts movie, and they both came back with glowing reviews for it. They actually both said
that it was fantastic. So I probably will be seeing that one too, but because I've kind of skipped most of the new Marvel stuff, I haven't watched much of any of it.
It
I
feels.
think,
I mean, there's a few characters I'll get up for, but it feels very burnouty for me because
yeah,
of how much I've been let down over and over again by the last few.
yeah,
And I've said since the
I've not
beginning,
made
like
it a priority.
I don't really connect with any of the. I don't know what phase or block they're in, 5, 6, whatever it is. I don't know any of these characters. I don't know Moon Knight. I don't care about Loki. I don't really
The deep
connect with.
bench.
Yeah, the Eternals. I didn't even know that was a Marvel movie until I turned it on. I'm serious. I didn't even know they were a real thing. I was like, oh, it's the guy that I hope becomes the next James Bond, and he's in this movie. I'll watch it.
Yeah, the Eternals was a Jack Kirby creation from the 70s.
Yeah. Well,
But,
and now I've been read in, but
they were part of the space god stuff. Like they were like so like
yeah, I was like,
deep bench that nobody really even knew who the Eternals were.
yeah, I
Unless
was
you're a
paddling
comic
through
book
this
nerd.
like, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Blade. They're gonna make a new Blade with Marshala Ali. That's gonna be sick. And then they mothballed it. I was like, dude, all right. I don't know any of the like Shang-Chi and stuff. Like, I know there was a period of exploitation-ish type of comics around
Yeah.
a certain period of time with Marvel and so
Yeah.
forth.
And Blade was a part of that.
Blade was a
same
part of
era,
that
but,
for sure. But like,
yeah.
I
But
just,
he was definitely, you know,
I don't know
Blade,
these guys.
like the Marvel universe wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for Blade. So we need to give the credit where credit's due. And so, but yeah, it was one of those things that like
That came out in the late 90s, maybe mid 90s. It was
98.
1998. Like,
Mhm.
what was the first? Because Marvel wasn't a studio back then. It was
That was
licensed
the
from
first
Marvel.
movie.
That was the first one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
So,
and
they
I
had
had
a
fun
couple
with
of
it.
things
Blade
back in
2
the
and
80s
3
with,
were like whatever, but the first one was dope.
Well, Blade 2 actually spawned Guillermo del Toro's basically career.
Sure.
Like he directed that movie and like the whole book series and TV show The Strain was based off of his concept of that.
Yeah.
So, and then Blade 3 I actually really enjoyed because I enjoyed Ryan Reynolds' character in that.
I
and
did
Parker
too.
Posey
I
in
love
that.
seeing Parker Posey come back in just about anything. And she was
Yeah.
an asshole in that movie, and I love it.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, whatever.
but they were
Wesley
fine.
Snipes being badass. But yeah, like aside from that, I don't know any of these characters at all. I'm just like,
Right.
I know more of the X-Men than I know you guys, and now you're all one because of the Fox deal. But obviously,
Yeah.
as shown in Deadpool and Wolverine,
We'll see if they finally, like third time's the charm, if they can actually pull off a Fantastic Four movie that's decent.
it's
It'd
Pedro
actually be
Pascal.
fourth time.
It should be John
know.
Krasinski.
It really should.
They even
It really,
showed
really
that,
should.
and we were like, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even remember how they did that.
I buy a John Krasinski, Reed Richards 100 times more than I buy a Pedro Pascal Reed Richards. It
Yep.
doesn't even make sense to me. But because he's the hot ticket and he's got to be in everything, they
He's
put him in that.
He's getting a lot of paychecks, big ones with Mickey Mouse's face on them recently with all the
Yeah.
Star Wars stuff he's been up to and all this. So,
Yeah. And The Last of Us and all of it. Like he's, HBO's got paychecks going to him. But yeah. Yeah. So that's Novocaine. And hopefully I will catch up on some
Mission Impossibles.
Mission Impossibles and go from there. I have been keeping up on Mobland. I just watched the 9th episode last night, and it's just heating up. I love that show.
Nice.
So I actually been playing the theme song while I drive.
Nice.
So
I've got to get caught up with that. It's also on
you're
the
gonna
menu.
love it. It's right up your alley. You're gonna love it.
Well, and it's got all the right stuff. Pierce Brosnan's in there, and my guy Tom Hardy's in there, and my gal Helen Mirren, who is second, very close second, but second only to Judi Dench in my book. She's my favorite actress of all time.
Johnny Depp's too.
Johnny Depp is in this as well.
Oh no!
Oh.
Johnny Depp's in love with Judi Dench, and Judi Dench is
he
in
really?
love with Johnny Depp.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See, there's a whole like segment. There's a couple of channels of YouTube that are dedicated. They both agree that uh if time could, if they could get away with it, they would. They're like, I don't just love them, I'm in love with, like,
Oh, I
they
see.
love each other because they were in Chocolat together, and
Ah,
ever since then, like, they've had this bizarre, like, distant love affair where
okay.
she's quite a bit older, but he just finds her the most elegant, amazing, beautiful human being he's ever known, and she finds him to be the most beautiful, charming human being
Well, I'm
she's
not
ever
all the
known.
way there
And
yet with Judi Dench, but give it some time,
yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
well, yeah, you should look up. There's
Okay.
videos of them talking about each other on different interviews, and they just like wholeheartedly gush about each other.
Hmm.
And it's not like they appreciate each other for the work that they do and that they're like admiring them. They're
They're
talking
just,
about like
yeah.
true romantic love that they cannot have, and it's hilarious. But yeah, that is something
Yeah,
you
I
should
was I was almost there with
rabbit
Emmanuel
trail.
Shrieky and Ollie Larder, but not quite. So. All right,
So
so I know why they're here, chat. I know why you're here. You know why you're here. It's
yeah,
Gospel by Gen Z time. It's chapter 43, Transfiguration.
we all love to get in the word at the end of the show here.
This is it. So Jesus took 3 of his besties up a mountain and he dropped the hardest reality at it and thought that they wouldn't notice. For he had a supernatural glow up and his face and clothes were divinely extra. And when they saw this, it altered their brain chemistry. Suddenly, Moses and Elijah were vibing with Jesus, so Peter tried to match their energy and said, "Hey, yo, y'all trying to chill or nah?" Just then, a bright cloud entered the chat, and a voice came from it and said, "This is my son. He's him. Let him cook." The 3 bros were low-key terrified. Then Jesus yeeted his glorified era, and Moses and Elijah skirted back to heaven. As they gritted down the mountain, Jesus told them, "Gatekeep all these facts you have witnessed until the CEO of life glows back up." So the 3 bros wondered what glowing back up meant and said maybe it's the friends we made along the way, for they didn't understand the assignment at all. That's chapter 43.
Uh, we're getting close to the end here.
Yes, the next segment of this book is called Part 4, Playing Chess. And it just has, I think, Antonio Cesare. That might have been the painter, but it looks
wow.
like a should I crucify this guy or not? Pontius Pilate type of speech. But who knows? No references. We don't need them. So that's it for this week for me. I think we got some travel coming up. I have to go back to the Emerald City at the end of June, which is about a month away. I know you're coming down right around the same time. I'll only be gone for a day or two. You'll be back here and doing some tattoozle things.
I will.
And then I will be on vacation during that period of time as well. So I will be away from Redacted and stuff like that. I think we're still going to get away with the pod while you're down here, though. So
I think so.
that's the goal.
But we still have a week or two before then, right?
Yeah, we sure do.
Okay,
We got
cool.
some time. So stress less, amigos. We'll be back. Anything else from you?
No, that's it for me.
Cool.
So thanks everybody.
Thank
It
you
was
all.
a good one. We talked about a lot of cool stuff tonight. So thank you everybody for joining in. And yeah, follow us on and engage with me on Twitter, on X, and then on Facebook. I'll engage back with you, make comments, and send messages, and add us on all those things.
Get engaged with Lucky
then,
on social media.
and then follow us on YouTube and all of the audio streaming as well.
I love it. All right, folks. Until next time. Good night.